Dead men tell no tales, but their ships speak volumes. Welcome to the Cursed Compass, where we explore the darkest maritime mysteries. Along the rugged coastline near Jervis Bay, locals still swap stories about a phantom iron steamer. They say during a severe, out-of-season gale, you might spot a dark silhouette fighting the waves, accompanied by the mournful cries of sailors echoing across the water. That folklore was captured on tape in 1954, when an Australian folklorist recorded a 73-year-old woman named Mary Burns. She sang a melancholy traditional ballad she'd learned in her youth, called The Wreck of the Dandenong. Those lyrics serve as an oral history. They preserve the specific details of one of the deadliest maritime disasters to ever strike the New South Wales coast. The real SS Dandenong was a 291-foot iron steamer. On September 8, 1876, she departed Melbourne bound for Newcastle, carrying a mix of cargo, 52 crew members, and 53 passengers. At the time, she was widely described as a sturdy vessel with equipment of the highest standard. Because she was specifically built for reliability on this route, the events that followed were so unexpected, they became a permanent fixture in local memory and song. The voyage started calmly enough, but as the steamer rounded Wilson's Promontory, she sailed directly into the teeth of an out-of-season superstorm. The system was so massive and destructive, meteorologists eventually named it the Dandenong Gale. Between September 6th and 14th, the furious winds and towering sea swells would claim 9 different vessels along the Australian coast. Pushing further north toward Jervis Bay, the Dandenong faced violent, unpredictable seas. The heavy iron hull was thrown mercilessly in the swells, subjecting the ship's internal mechanics to immense compounding stress. Transitioning from wooden hulls to iron gave crews a new sense of security against the elements. But the sheer force of this gale proved that even a 700-ton iron hull has structural limits, and in these conditions, a ship's heavy equipment can quickly become a liability. Early on September 10th, the immense torque and ocean battering proved too much. The Dandenong's iron propeller shaft snapped. The flailing metal tore a massive hole through the hull, instantly letting the ocean inside. The crew scrambled down into the freezing water. They frantically tried to stem the inflow using whatever they could find, wedging mattresses, blankets, and bedding into the breach. But the pressure was too great. Water kept rising, eventually reaching the engine room and smothering the boiler fires. Without steam, the ship lost internal power, and the primary defense, the bilge pumps, failed entirely. The vessel's mechanical heartbeat stopped. Passengers and crew were plunged into cold, dark silence, drifting powerless in the middle of a screaming gale. The Dandenong was an iron weight filling with water. Captain Irwin immediately ordered the lifeboats prepared. By mid-afternoon, a barque called the Albert William spotted the Dandenong's distress flags and braved the storm to help. Transferring terrified passengers into tiny wooden lifeboats amidst towering, violent waves is exceptionally dangerous. The chief officer took charge of the first lifeboat, loading it primarily with women and children. Against the odds, they rowed away from the sinking steamer, sparking brief, desperate cheers from those trapped on deck. But as that small boat drew alongside the rescue ship, the Albert William was caught in a violent swell and rolled heavily downward. The massive wooden hull crushed the lifeboat, splitting it completely in two and plunging the occupants into the freezing, churning ocean. Only 4 people from that boat were pulled to safety. 17 drowned. A second boat managed to ferry passengers to safety, but a collision involving a third boat cost even more lives. And then the sun set on the horizon. Blinded by the night and the storm, the crew of the Albert William lost sight of the sinking steamer. More than 30 passengers and crew remained trapped on the Dandenong, listening to the water rise in the dark. When daybreak finally arrived, the ocean was empty. The Dandenong had vanished. Having rescued 28 passengers and 12 crew, the Albert William turned back toward land. The survivors arrived carrying immense grief, leaving children completely orphaned after losing their families in hours. A court of inquiry reviewed the rescue efforts, concluding that despite 40 deaths, the crew did everything humanly possible. Even today, the precise location of the wreck remains a mystery. The SS Dandenong still sits somewhere at the bottom of the ocean off Jervis Bay, swallowed by the deep. Because the physical evidence disappeared beneath the waves, culture stepped in to keep the memory alive. The final hours of the Dandenong were woven into a folk song, ensuring that long after the storm passed, the story would continue to echo.